can separate the guy from first and second and third. It's all up there. That's the key.
How did you develop your mindset? Was that something that you always had, or was it something that you developed as you were training?
I think it's something I already had, and I kind of left home when I was 16, so I was out on my own on the street, and you know, you're either going to get smart and look after yourself, or you're going to fall down. There's nobody there to catch me, so that was there from an early age, I think, and I was just very determined to do this thing that I felt I could be good at in order to change my life and change, the projection of my life, the people around me. I grew up on a housing estate in UK. I had no education. I was in a jail when I was 18. So I had all that. That was, the people around me, I was like, I didn't want part of that future. I wanted to do something else. And I got this thing that I was good at. So I'm going to take it and run with it,
It's crazy how many people have similar stories.
Oh, they're like, no, that's it. That's enough. Because every set, bar the warm-up sets, you got to warm up and, to be safe and everything. But the real sets, I call them, we're going to go to absolute failure and even beyond with force reps, with assistance reps, maybe extra negative reps, which is something that most people neglect when they lift weights. They think, I've lifted it. All right, boom, let it go down. I've lifted it. But they're neglecting the lowering part of the weight, the negative. So I get people to really slow that down, so you're taxing that part as well. And even at the end of the set, on some exercises with machines where it's practical, so you can't curl anymore physically on the positive, on the contraction, but your strength on the lowering is greater. So if you did curls and you failed, I could lift the weight to the top for you, and you could lower it down for probably another 3 reps. So if you'd just gone to failure here, you wouldn't have exhausted the negative part of the rep. So my thing is I exhaust everything. It's totally fucked. You can't lift, you can't lower it, you can't lift it. It's total failure. If you do that once on an exercise, then time to move on, do another exercise.
How did you develop your protocol? Just trial and error?
Trial and error, and more about the insecurity of the guys competing. Like, why don't you learn yourself and listen to your body? And I used to make notes, every week I'd write down my diet. I'd write down every single workout that I ever did from 1984 to 1997. I have in a training log.
You should sell that.
I print it. Maybe, yeah.
Print it, put it in a book.
It's in all these little exercise books, and like you can see. The first one when I'm like 21 years old, it's a bit childish with the comments. But it's like, I felt shit today. This was a shitty workout. Never fucking let this happen again. All this stuff I'm talking to myself. So I got all this, and it's to go back and look at it sometimes. And it's weird because I can go back to 1988 and I can look in my book and I look at that workout and I was like, I was in this gym and I was training with this guy. And I can even remember what I was wearing, and I can go back in time and remember that workout.
Just from those notes?
Yeah, like every workout. As soon as I got home and I finished, I was like, hey, bench press, I did this. And every month I would make notes and I'd say, okay, this is what I'm doing now. These are my goals for the next 4 weeks. Whatever, like little goals. Like I'm going to put 5 pounds on my bench press. But if you do that every month, then at the end of the month, end of the year, you got 60 pounds, right? So I did all these things like, mental rehearsal, visualization, all this stuff. I did it. I kind of learned it. Nobody taught me. So that was one of the things, goal setting, writing it down on a piece of paper. You can do this with anything, your business, whatever. You're writing it down on a piece of paper. You're making a commitment. It's fucking there on a piece of paper. Every day you can look at that. And that just gives you a stronger mental vision. And instead of saying, right, I'm going to win this contest in 18 months' time. Yeah, that's cool. You're going to win that contest. But how are you going to get there? It's like saying, I'm going to sail to Australia. Yeah, it's a good idea. That's cool. But how are you going to get there? Have you got a plan? Have you got a map? Or you're going to go with no map. You're just going to get lost, So alcohol. Sign it. You fucking put it there on your table.
Don't just have it as a thought.
You've said that, man. You've said it. You've said it. You've made the commitment. You put it on a paper. So you're gonna let yourself down. You're gonna be a pussy. You're gonna be weak, and you're gonna break that. You made that commitment, man.
Right.
It's there on a piece of paper. So that's strong. He studied it, and it was like, what is it that causes muscle growth? What is it? And he found it was the intensity of exercise. And then there was another bodybuilder, Mike Mensa, who went to compete in the Mr Olympia, won the Mr Universe. He took those principles and he used them. So I read all this stuff, and it was very logical. It made sense. And then I tried it out in the gym, and it worked in the gym. And if I trained more often, or if I did more in the gym, my progress would slow down or it would stop. As soon as I cut back and I made the workout shorter and more intense, my progress went. So it was, for me, it was pretty early on I learned how to train properly. And that's why I was competing. I competed in a world championship after 18 months training, which is pretty much unheard of.
That is pretty much unheard of. Now, when you say shorter, more intense workouts, how did you regulate that? Like, that's a huge issue with martial artists, is overtraining. They want to do more work than everybody else. They want to work harder than everybody else, and they wind up breaking their body down and showing up for the fight exhausted.
Overtraining is a big thing, yeah. And if you see the process for muscle growth is you go in the gym and you put stress on the muscle. If you put stress that it's not used to, then it's going to react. You're going to get growth. But you need to recover from that first. You don't go to the gym and grow and then recover later. That's not the way it works. You go, if you give your body some stress it's not used to, you'll get a reaction. But before you get the reaction, you have to recover. So if you're not allowing enough time to recover, I use this analogy at seminars I do. It's very simplistic, but it gets the point across. If you get a bit of sandpaper and you rub it across the palm of your hand and it's kind of bloody, if you leave it and let it heal up, what's going to happen? The skin's going to develop back a little bit stronger, a little bit thicker than before because it wants to protect against that stress. So that's the process. But if you go and you make your hand bloody, and before it's healed up again, you go and rub it again, what's happening? You're not really getting anywhere. You're just going to have a bloody hand, you know? So you got 4 workouts covering the whole body over a 6-day period. Having said that, you got to be flexible. If you need an extra day for recovery, then take an extra day. So they'll become 4 days over 7. Some people may need even more. You got to listen to your body. If you need more days to recover, then just extend that cycle into 7 days or 8 days or whatever you need. Extra negatives are a tool that you can use to increase the intensity. Basically, you got 3 phases of strength. The weakest phase is the positive, or the lifting of the weight. That's the weakest phase. The second phase of strength is the static. You're stronger on the static. And then the third phase is the negative. Unfortunately, a lot of people think in terms of just lifting weight. So, for instance, a bench press, they've lifted the weight to the top. All right, job done. Just drop it back down and do another one. They're missing half of the rep, and possibly the most important half of the rep, because more muscle damage occurs on the negative than on the positive. And it's a damage to the muscle that the body repairs that then becomes muscle growth. So you're missing the most important part of the rep if you don't emphasize that negative part. And even when you've gone to failure on the positive part of the exercise, your muscle hasn't gone to true failure because there's still strength left in the negative. So that's why I advise sometimes doing additional negatives at the end of the set. If you've got a training partner, if you're on a machine and it's safe, for instance, you're doing bench press on a machine, you reach failure, you do a couple of forced reps, your positive strength is depleted, you failed, but you've still got something left in the negative. So you can get somebody to raise their weight to the top and lower it slowly down for a couple of reps until you can't control it. That way, you've depleted every area of the rep. In the off-season, a moderate amount of cardio, I think, is good for your cardiovascular conditioning. You need some decent amount of cardio to recover between your sets. So 25, 30 minutes, 3 times a week, moderate cardio, I think is good for some conditioning. It's also good for recovery from the workouts because it helps you pushing blood around the system, help get rid of the waste products from the weight workouts. I prefer to do them on days that I'm not in the gym. Or if your schedule doesn't permit that and you have to do it on the days you're weight training, I would much prefer to do it away from the weight workout. I've known for years from my own feedback that if you do cardio after weight training, it kind of interferes with the recovery. The priority is recovering from that workout and rebuilding your resources. So it's much better to do your cardio separately. And funnily enough, scientific studies are coming out now and proving this. If you do cardio after weights, your strength gains are less than if you did weights on their own. That work, but there's no additional weight. It's just body weight, short movements, crunches, reverse crunches, leg raises. Of course, if you wanted to get thicker abdominals, you could use extra resistance, but most people don't because aesthetically you don't want to build too much muscle in the midsection because it spoils your shape. So just very controlled, short movements, basically abdominals is just to bring these 2 points together. So sit-ups and so on, not the most effective. I found just simple forward crunches and a reverse crunch where you're bringing your hips up towards your chest and just reversing that movement. That's pretty much all I needed. Sure, you can do once a week when you're in a mass cycle, but I wouldn't recommend using extra weights because it's going to build thickness in your obliques and it's going to it's going to spoil your symmetry. I'll do several sets, just concentrating on the contraction and having more control, especially when you go on stage, controlling your abdominals and with the posing and everything. You need to be connected with the muscle, get up to control them. There's a debate. What's better, machines or free weights? Neither. They're both tools that you can use. As long as you're working the muscle, you're working it to failure. It doesn't particularly matter if it's a machine or a free weight. There's advantages and disadvantages. The advantage with a free weight, of course, we're all built differently. We're all different heights, we're all got different lengths of limbs, different attachments and everything, where a machine is just built in one way. A free weight, if you lift a free weight and I lift a free weight, it will take a slightly different pathway because our bodies are built differently. So that's the advantage of a free weight. It works with the individual's body, where a machine, you're locked into a groove. The advantage of a machine is that you can isolate the muscle without too much outside involvement, especially if you've got injuries. They're very useful, and there's more control involved. So if you want to do extra negatives and so on, of course, if you're doing a free weight bench press, it's very awkward to do extra negatives at the end. You'd have to lift the weight to the top and lower it down, and it's just not practical and it's not really safe. Whereas the machine, if you're doing a machine bench press, you can get your training partner to lift to the top and you can control it and it's safe. So there's advantages and disadvantages. I use both in my training. I use free weights, I use machines. The main thing is, as long it's more like the effort that you're putting in rather than the tools that you're using. I've always worked with a training partner just because working to failure, it's not practical. If you haven't got a training partner, you at least need a good spotter, somebody that knows what they're doing. If you're going to failure with on an incline press with a free weight, for instance, if you've got a failure and there's nobody there spotting you, it's very dangerous. So you could get stuck with that weight on your chest. So you need a good training partner, or at least a spotter, to assist you in those exercises where it's not safe and practical to do it without a training partner. So for me, they're essential, but of course, you've got to have a training partner that has the same goals as yourself. I think that's very important. I can give guidelines, but obviously it varies from one person to another depending on their metabolism. I usually start with a protein recommendation. If somebody's training hard and they're trying to build muscle and put on body weight, I would recommend ballpark like 1.5 grams of protein for each pound of body weight. So if you weigh 200 pounds, for instance, 300 grams of protein a day, that's what you should be aiming for. And your body can only utilize so much protein at one time, and it doesn't stay in the system for very long. So that's why I recommend breaking that protein requirement down into 5 or 6 small meals throughout the day. And that's where a protein supplement becomes very important. That's something I've always used since I started training, because to get 300-400 grams of protein a day from solid food is very, very difficult. And if you're working and so on, it's not practical to eat chicken breast every couple of hours. So a protein supplement is very useful to get that requirement in. As far as energy requirement, carbohydrates, that's going to vary quite a bit from one individual to another. So I can give you a guideline, and basically if you're putting on body fat with that level, then you have to bring it down a little bit. If you're not gaining weight, then you have to go up a little bit. Whatever protein level you're taking, times that by 1.5 to 2. 300 grams of protein a day becomes 450 to 600 grams of carbohydrate a day. That would be a good guideline. And again, break it out throughout the day and keep a good source of carbohydrates. Fairly complex carbohydrates that are broken down slowly, released into your bloodstream slowly, so you don't get spikes of blood sugar and big drops. So we're talking oatmeal, brown rice, sweet potatoes, vegetables, things like that. You need fats in your diet. There was one time back when I started training where it was just high protein, carbohydrates and super low fat. And I found with a little bit more fat in my diet, definitely my strength went up and I got better gains. You're going to get dietary fat if you're eating eggs. I wouldn't recommend just eating egg whites. I would throw a few egg yellows in there. If you take all the yellows out, you're taking some of the aminos away. So let's say you're having 10 egg whites, I would say have at least 3 yolks in there as well. You know, steak, you're going to have natural fats in there, and a couple of tablespoons a day of omega fats, mixed omega fats, to make sure you're getting all the essential fats. Chicken breast, turkey breast, beef is an excellent source of protein. It's just, you know, if it's very high in fat, obviously you don't want that. But you can get, I used to get lean ground beef, almost as lean as chicken breast, and it's a better, more complete source of protein. So beef's a good source as well. So eggs, chicken breast, turkey breast, beef, fish is fine if you like it. I'm not a big fan myself. And then a protein supplement. Those were main sources. I used to train after 2 meals. So I'd have a big breakfast, you know, oatmeal, eggs, and so on. A couple of hours later, I'd have a shake, a protein shake, maybe a banana, a small amount of carbohydrates, about an hour to hour and a half before I trained. 30 minutes before I train, I take a pre-workout kind of stimulant supplement. After training, I would take a small amount of simple, quickly digested protein, like a whey isolate, along with some simple sugars, dextrose, sucrose, it doesn't matter as long as it's simple sugar. Then you're going to get that insulin reaction. Body's going to release insulin, and it's going to help push nutrients towards the muscles that are depleted at that point. And that's a good time to take, you know, extra glutamine, creatine. If you're taking creatine, that's an excellent time to take it. You're going to absorb more right after the workout with the simple sugars. Well, I got a lot of experience with injuries, man. I had enough injuries over the years. I've learned as I went along. As a young guy, when I started, I got injuries, and there was no good advice around. I'd go to my MD, and of course, they don't know much about sports injuries. They just tell you to rest and take some anti-inflammatories. If you've got an injury, a small injury, it's good to take care of it. You know, what happens if you've got an injury, if you've got a small tear in the muscle, your body will repair that, but it repairs it with scar tissue. Scar tissue is not flexible like normal muscle tissue. It's not elastic. So if you could think about like an elastic band, if you snapped an elastic band and then stuck it together with glue, with a lump of glue, it'll be fixed, but it'll no longer be elastic. And there's a good chance that lump of glue at some point is going to snap again. So if you get a little injury, I think deep tissue massage is the best thing to do. You get somebody in there, break that scar tissue down, bring blood into the area, and trying to get the healthy tissue back there. And do that before it becomes a severe injury. You know, that's what I've learned over the years. And you know, regular chiropractic is very helpful as well to keep everything in balance. Don't wait till you've got an injury. If you're putting a lot of stress on your body, if you're doing a lot of weight training, I think it's a good idea to have regular chiropractic care, just maybe once a month, something like that. I used to do strength because, I mean, strength is a good indication. If you're getting stronger, you're getting bigger and vice versa. So I would do body weight. I even used to do measurements, like measure my arms. Stuff might sound a bit old school, but if you've got various factors there, you can see if they're all increasing. So you can do a couple of measurements. You can do your body weight on the scales. You can do your strength levels and see how that increases from month to month, and have a goal each month. Even if this month I'm going to put on 2 pounds, if you did that every month, at the end of the year, it's 24 pounds. It's a huge gain. I didn't do pitches in the off season, but I did getting ready for a contest. Every week, getting ready for a contest. That way I could track how my body was changing, and actually helped me a lot. When I won the first Mr Olympia in 1992, I kept that every week, pitches. And what I noticed was, like, practically 5 or 6 weeks out from the contest, I was more or less in contest shape. And I kept coming down and losing weight. And I may have got a little harder, but what I realized is I was actually losing muscle. So the next year I was determined not to do that, and I didn't make that mistake. And that's why I was able to make a huge increase from one year to the next, like 16 or 17 pounds of muscle from one year to the next. And everyone was like, wow, how is that possible? Well, you know, I had a great year of training, so I probably did put on 5 or 6 pounds of muscle, which at a pro level, that's a great gain. But more importantly, I didn't sacrifice 10 pounds of muscle that I sacrificed the previous year. So it's really helped the learning process. Something that really helped me over the years to keep motivated is keeping a journal with nutrition, with training. What I used to do is every month write down where I'm at presently. This is my body weight. This is my nutrition. These are my max weights for 8 reps on like 10 key exercises. And then I would set myself a short-term goal, which is like, in 1 month's time, I want to do this. And it's got to be an achievable goal. For instance, if you could just add 5 pounds to your bench press in a month, if you could do that every month, then that's 60 pounds at the end of the year. That's a huge gain. So it's important to have goals, short-term goals, maybe monthly goals, and maybe a long-term goal at the end of the year, and break it down into little steps. Instead of looking at the end of the year, I want to achieve this. How are you going to get there? You've got to take small steps to get there. So monthly goals, and writing them down, I think it makes them much more powerful. What I would do before a workout, I would look at my journal, and I would keep a record of every workout as well. After a workout, I would write down, this is what I did today, incline press 200 times 8 reps, and I would review that before I went to do the workout the next week. Okay, that's what I did last week, and that's my goal to beat this, I did 8 reps with 200 or whatever. This workout, I'm going to do 9 reps or 10 reps, or I'm going to do the same reps with 205, just small increments, and get that goal in your mind. Know which exercises you're going to do before you go to the gym, which order you're going to do them in, what your goals are for those exercises, rather than just wandering in the gym and thinking, I'm doing chest today. What shall I do? What do I feel like doing today? And having no clear goal. If you've got no clear goal, you're very unlikely to get anywhere. Well, now you have an industry. You have a fitness industry. Bodybuilding is part of the fitness industry. And when I was bodybuilding, for me, one of the beauties of bodybuilding was that I had to do this myself. It was an individual effort. So I had to study myself and find out about nutrition. And then I had to apply it to my own body and see practically how it worked. So I had to discover all these things. I had to discover about supplementation and training and so on. So it was an individual effort for me. I need to gather all this information and decide what works better for me. This was exciting. Now you have in the industry so-called gurus and trainers, and they're taking money from people in order to tell them what to eat, tell them what to train, tell them what to do, hold their hand and go here and go there. And the people are not learning anything. And in my experience, a lot of these people try to take something which can be fairly simple. I mean, I can make this diet and this training simple for you to understand and apply, or I can make it myself, try to sound very clever and make it very complicated. But in the end, it's the same information. So I think it's much easier for people if you give them basic, simple information that works. And all this theatrics and complicated stuff is really these guys trying to baffle people and make more money, in my opinion. So you're better off learning for yourself or getting information from people that's easy to follow. I can tell you, eat this, and you will lose weight. Or I can make it very complicated and you think, wow, this guy is so complicated, I can't even understand it. It must really know what he's talking about. So there's a lot of what I would call smoke and mirrors. Most things is common sense and application.